Hello, my name is Vanessa Love. This is my channel about the mental health field and and issues in that field. All right, so I wrote my little list of what I want to talk about. So today I wanted to talk about financial mistakes that my clients have made, and then I want to talk a little bit about like how people can overcome them, and of course with the therapy aspect, of course. All right. So, financial mistakes my clients have made. Not knowing or creating a budget. If someone doesn't know how, like, what they're spending, where all their money is going, or like that they want to put, $10 aside, $15, $20 aside, whatever it is, to like into their savings for the future, any of that stuff, like it really does make a difference to like know what your bills are and like how to make money in order to pay those bills. I do see a lot of clients who don't have the best financial situation. If you are unaware of how things kind of work in Connecticut, so there is insurance for low income adults. It does not cost anything. There are no copays, and basically I bill the state. It's the state Medicaid program. It's called Husky. So like there are people who luckily are able to get this insurance, and they're able to receive treatment. So I do end up seeing a lot of clients who are low income adults who would otherwise never be able to afford my services, which I'm very grateful for because I know that a lot of other therapists in other states do struggle with this. So I feel very fortunate in order to serve this population that would otherwise be very disenfranchised. All right, so to unrealistic expectations of their financial situation. So, I mean, I think that it's perfectly fine to have very, very realistic goals. Like all of my clients, I really try to emphasize like small, measurable goals. So I've come across clients who just don't have realistic expectations for their money. For example, there might be other issues other than work, right? Like technically there are a lot of people who are able to work, right? Like there's like a couple of there's like a couple thousand people who aren't able to work, obviously, either too young or too old, or they're on disability, like they have something going on. But most people, especially the people who come to see me, are not, like, they are very capable adults. They are very capable adults. So like they'll talk about, okay, so I want to do this, and I'm like, okay, but if you don't have like a stable like household, like you move frequently, you, the goals that you have for your finances need to kind of be centered around that more than like if you had like a steady house, right? Like a steady living situation. And then also like consistent transportation. Like, yes, I get that like people don't own cars. That's great. That very much works in cities. Sometimes, especially in like some of the rural and suburban parts of Connecticut, you can't get away with that. That like I know I lived way out in the boondocks, like near the casinos, and that bus ran every 2 hours. So that was not a reliable form of transportation. Obviously, like how am I supposed to get anywhere? But I've had clients who have like part-time under the table jobs, which I mean obviously not happy with, but like I always get a little bit excited, like, okay, like first step, got a job. But like they'll have a part-time, like very infrequent job, like sometimes the people will call them, sometimes like an owner will have a moment and just be like, I don't need you today, I don't need you tomorrow, I don't care when I see you next, which is very, very like economically unstable. And then like, so sometimes like sometimes like the people will be like, okay, so I want to buy a house. if all of these other things are going on, you will not be able to afford a house. Like, no. Um, or like, they'll be like, okay, well, I want to pay off all my student loan debt. Like, okay, I mean, you're working on it, but like, where are you going to find time or the other jobs that are consistent that will like put like help you with all of that? And it's like, let's say someone like right now, if they were like, I want to be debt free, even though they have like, let's say $10,000 worth of debt, like, they want to be debt free by the end of the year. Like, okay, now if they had a steady job, if they had like maybe a side gig, maybe a couple of side gigs, like, and they're really good at marketing themselves, setting realistic expectations, all of that, it'd be like, I think you could do that. That's a very good goal. But like, again, with all of this life stuff, it might not be possible. And having realistic expectations, like maybe you can pay $100 off because you worked an extra, shift somewhere and you were able to have a little bit of money to like, pay off your debt or whatever. Like that makes sense to me, but like some people are like, no, 10,000 or nothing. Like, well, it's probably going to be nothing then. All right, so renting unofficial apartments. So I totally understand people get into bad spots and they need to do what they need to do, especially for housing. Like, I definitely understand that part. But sometimes my clients have rented apartments that have no running water, no hot water, like, they can't have like what is that called? They can't use the kitchen. They can't use like some of the major like appliances. And like, I know one of my clients had like mold. That can definitely affect your health. And like, even if it's not black mold, like mold can still, like, you can be sensitive to it. Like, it can definitely get into your system and wreak havoc. But then like, they are so grateful that they have a place to stay that they don't complain about what's going on. And like, that to me, it's like, it's so bad because it's almost like they don't want to admit what is going on in front of them and like that they're still paying for this in some way. It's awful. So spending money on drugs or alcohol, I know everyone has their vices. I totally understand that, especially if they're disenfranchised, if they feel like they're perpetually poor. Like, drugs and alcohol do seem like they're a very negative coping skill, but they're a very easy coping skill, unfortunately. So like, the people will get a couple of extra dollars and spend it and on those things, and that's it. It's almost disheartening, but I try to understand it from their point of view that like, this is the fun that they have. And also it numbs them and gets them kind of away from thinking about all of the mismanagement of their money, or lack of money that they have. Like, these are not me saying like, that, like, even if someone created a budget, if they're not making enough money, there's nothing that they can really do, like, they have to make those choices, like food, maybe, or rent, maybe drugs, I don't know. So yeah, that definitely, like, it happens pretty quickly. Let's see, so giving money to friends, especially the ones with kids. Now, I've seen a lot of good men who are lied to about where their money goes. And like, I know one of my clients dated an ex-call girl, and so she kind of, she was very intelligent, but she was manipulative, so she would basically call him when he got paid and say that there just happened to be something that she needed for her kid. How unfortunate. She sometimes, they can't even afford food. it's so sad for them. And these are people who are like trying to like save up for like the smallest little thing for themselves, and they're like they feel, and like of course they're like, okay, I'll give you this money, and then the people won't talk to them until, oh, look at that, it's the next payday, oh my god, I'm in such financial ruin, my kids, and it happens all over again. It's really sad, and I know some of my clients, they have they've gotten loans from their friends and stuff, and like those friends sat them down one time, and then this is like a couple of clients, like they end up, like their friends end up sitting down with them and going, listen, if this is for this woman again, we're not giving you any money. Like, this is, no, we can't continue to like let you do this and run into debt with us, because you are never going to be able to pay us back. So next one is not understanding debt. Like understanding that like debt has to be paid off, and that it can be paid off. Like, it's not this huge thing. Like, as people, make more money, then they end up being able to pay this off. I mean, I know that not everyone is just gonna, step up and make more money, but again, like, the possibility is there. Like, these are able-bodied people who can do this. It's just that there's a lot of other stuff that happens usually that gets in the way of them getting there. Not having bank accounts. So I mean, having several issues with any bank is going to it ends up putting you on a list. And like, you really have to either dispute it, wait the allotted amount of time, or find a different way. It is very difficult for people to overcome that, and like, it's also one of those very important things. Like, it amazes me when I'm like, okay, so we have to work through this. All right, we can work through it. It's going to take a while. So not having credit cards or misusing other people's credit cards. Like, it when people have that goal of, right, owning a house, but like not having any credit anywhere, it's very difficult. It is very difficult. It's just, it becomes so monumental. And then, like, in Connecticut, like, you get, there's some programs that you can get involved with that will reduce the amount that you have to save in order to like pay the expenses of going through the whole house like situation, like the market and mortgage and all of that stuff. But like, if you don't have credit, like, or you have too low of credit, like, it really does affect everything. And like, mismanagement of your own credit, of other people's credit, it just shows like so many underlying issues, like, to me, that I'm like, okay, all right, so we have a lot to work on here. Not having a rich mindset. When people have a mindset of a rich person, like, they don't have just one bank account, right? Like, rich people don't have one bank account. They have a business bank account, a personal bank account, they have savings accounts, they have investment accounts, and they might have multiple investment accounts, because one might be more steady and the other one might be more volatile. Like, more risk involved in one of them than the other, but like, the one that has risk might have a $2,000 payout in like 2 months, whereas the steady one might have an $8,000 payout in 10 years. So like, what are you going to do? And like, that's like, it's so interesting to like try and get my clients first to have bank accounts, some of them, and then to be like, okay, so now that you have a bank account, you should probably have a savings account, and you should start looking into IRAs, and all of these other things, because like, it is important for your future to at least think of your future, and not just think, right now, I would like to save up. not filing taxes. Oh my gosh. It amazes me how I'll like go through something and then like at the end I'm like, oh, you haven't filed taxes. For some people, like, I agree, like, not filing taxes on, like, making next to nothing or being paid under the table, like, I get it. Um, don't, like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who can pay taxes, and then they end up not paying taxes. It's like, all right, you need to pay the taxes. You need to pay the taxes. And like, I know that it's a really scary process. I mean, you can pay someone to do it for you. Usually someone knows someone. But for me, I'm like, I'm tech savvy enough. Like, I'll go through and like, I mean, I do my Schedule C's. It's so funny because usually people are like, that not rebate, but like that return check. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm like, I always owe. Like, last year, like, because I paid my my estimated taxes, I had to pay like $400 extra, like when tax time came around, but not a big issue really. Like I just end up I have to pay. It's Schedule C stuff. I mean, it's just the way of having your own business. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I don't get a return. That's fine. But other people, I mean, they should be doing their taxes or getting their taxes done in some way. And I know that like some people, they just disconnect, don't like, nope, taxes, you said taxes, oh god. And then like just never want to really talk about it, get around to it or anything like that. So there is a phrase for this. It's financial trauma. The other stuff like that I was talking about, like with non-stable housing and all that stuff, that's not necessarily financial trauma. That's other things like trauma. It could be ADHD. It could be a whole lot of things. Hopefully those people are getting help and going to a therapist for like serious, like in-depth help there. Like there is a phrase called financial trauma. Hopefully you find, if you do have any of these things, find a therapist who is adept, who is aware of this type of stuff, just so that you can kind of work through some of the values, some of the trauma that you've experienced with finances that will help, you, if you find yourself in this, to overcome that stuff, or any person who's kind of struggling with this. I think that it is important, and there are books. There are also books about it. I have not read them. If you have, please let me know, because I would be so interested in knowing what's in these books. Anyway, so I hope that was helpful. I know this is getting kind of long, but I did want to, talk about some of these things. And I hope that you have a great day, and I will talk with you guys soon. All right, thanks.